For about 5 years, the whole field has run on a single sentence. Predict the next token at massive scale, and intelligence falls out. This paper takes that idea and quietly turns it inside out.
Quick heads up before we start. This is an AI-made explainer, both voices included.
And here's the result that stopped me. A model watched thousands of hours of video, was never shown a single robot action label, not one, and then got better at controlling a real robot arm. More passive video watching in, better physical control out. Nobody ever taught it to move.
Which shouldn't happen. Watching is not doing. So by the end of this, you'll understand how a model picks up physical competence from footage it never acted on, and why the team deliberately froze their own model's brain to prove it wasn't a cheat.
The paper is called Orca, from the Beijing Academy of Artificial Intelligence, posted at the end of June. And the reason a non-roboticist should care is a bottleneck. Robot demonstration data is slow and expensive to collect, while internet video is basically infinite. If watching video can build knowledge that transfers to a physical body, the whole problem shifts from collect more robot trajectories to watch more footage. That's a much cheaper resource.
But let me steelman the thing they're arguing against, because it's the thing everyone already believes. Language models predict the next word. Video models predict the next frame. Robot policies predict the next action. 3 prediction machines, each incredible at its own job. And the plan for general intelligence has basically been, keep scaling all 3. What's actually wrong with that?
Each one is welded to what it outputs. Think of the world as a stage play. Predicting the next word is memorizing the script. Predicting the next frame is memorizing the lighting and the camera. Predicting the next action is memorizing the actor's blocking. 3 separate things to memorize, and not one of them is the play. Orca's bet is that if you actually understand the state of the play, who's on stage, what they want, and what just happened, then the script, the staging, and the blocking all pour out of that one understanding. So instead of predicting the next token or frame or action, you predict the next state of the world.
And state here means what, concretely?
A compressed description of what's going on. Not the exact pixels. There's a robot arm, it's holding a pitcher. The pitcher is tilting. To predict how that state changes next, Orca needs 3 ingredients, and it's exactly like driving a car. Where things are right now, that's your position and speed. The invisible forces already in motion, gravity, momentum, friction, those act whether you like it or not. And any instruction someone just gave you, the passenger saying, turn left at the next light. Current state, hidden dynamics, and an optional explicit command. Feed those in, predict the next state. And it runs both directions. Forward to guess the future, backward to reconstruct the past.
So, quick gut check before we build on this. Why can't you just scale next token prediction forever and call it a day? Because it only ever practices one readout. It never has to model the thing underneath that all 3 readouts are shadows of.
Right. And that thing underneath is a single shared representation. Picture a hub with 3 spokes. The hub is the world state. The spokes are 3 cheap decoders. One reads it out as text, one as an image, one as a robot action. 1 core, 3 windows. Now, how do you actually teach that hub? This is my favorite part, because the authors borrow language straight from cognitive science. They split the learning into 2 modes they call unconscious and conscious.
Curious learning. Meaning what? The model has a subconscious now?
It's a metaphor, and we'll poke at how literally to take it later. But it's a good one. Unconscious learning is like having a video playing in the corner of your eye all day. You passively absorb how things fall, bump, and slide, with nobody labeling any of it. Mechanically, Orca gets fed 1 video frame and has to predict the next frame. But here's the hinge of the entire paper. It does not predict the next frame's pixels. It predicts the next frame's latent, the compressed, meaning-level description. Because if you're learning how the world works, it's a waste to reconstruct the exact wood grain or the flicker of a shadow. What you care about is, the door is now closed. Predicting in meaning space, not pixel space.
And that's the V-JEPA lineage, right? Jan LeCun's crowd pioneered predicting in latent space instead of redrawing pixels. So what does Orca add?
2 things. It adds language as an explicit steering signal, and it runs prediction backward as well as forward. And the language part is the second mode, conscious learning. Instead of passively absorbing footage, someone taps your shoulder and says, watch, he's about to set the pitcher down. A sentence describing a meaningful event steers the model to predict that specific state. Sparse, goal-directed attention, guided by words. And there's a third, quieter signal, plain visual question answering, that keeps the model able to explain itself in language.
So 3 teachers shaping one shared hub. One teaches raw physics from footage nobody narrated. One teaches goal-directed change from a spoken description. And one keeps the words connected to the pictures.
Exactly 3 teachers. And hold on to the idea that they specialize, because that comes back as evidence. One more thing to flag now because it matters at the end. Those target latents the model predicts against, they come from a frozen, pre-trained vision encoder. So the world state Orca learns is tethered to a vision system it already had. It's not built from raw physics up. Keep that in your pocket.
Noted. And I want to come back to it hard. But first, everybody claims their model learned something deep. How do we know Orca's core actually did? And it's not the usual story where fine-tuning quietly patches over a weak center.
That question is the best thing in this paper. The real test is next. And it's the move that turns this from a nice idea into an honest experiment, paying off in a robot that recovers from its own mistakes. Here's the setup. Normally you train a big model and then fine-tune the whole thing on a new task. If it does well, the result is ambiguous. Maybe the core learned something rich, or maybe fine-tuning just papered over the cracks. So Orca does something disciplined. After pre-training, they freeze the entire backbone. Locked. It cannot change. Then they bolt those 3 tiny decoders on top and train only those.
So the core is a sealed textbook.
That's the perfect image. Imagine testing whether a student really understood a course versus crammed for one exam. You seal their notes and textbook, and you let them use only a fresh index card they write for each subject. If they still ace physics, chemistry, and history from sealed knowledge alone, the understanding was in their head, not on the card. That's the probe. Freeze the world model, allow only thin per-modality readouts, and see if text, image, and action all still work. Because the core can't move, any improvement has to be coming from the latent itself.
And that flips the whole thing from a demo into a falsifiable claim. If a stronger core, more pre-training, makes all 3 readouts better with the core untouchable, that's real. So, does it?
It does, and the shape of the evidence is the point. Watch the scaling curves. As they pour in more data and grow the model from the smaller size to the 4 billion one, the training loss keeps falling. It doesn't plateau early the way you'd expect. And critically, the text score, the image score, and the robot score all climb together, in lockstep, off that one frozen core. 3 lines, 3 different modalities, all trending the same direction as the hub gets richer. That's the scientific claim made visible.
Give me the numbers, though. Trending up is easy to say.
On World Understanding Text benchmarks, Orca at 4 billion parameters scores about 52 on average. Its own base model scores about 47. And a dedicated world model called EMU 3.5 at 34 billion parameters scores about 30. So a 4 billion model outscoring a 34 billion one on understanding how the world changes. And when you break down where the gains land, it's revealing. Understanding of state transitions jumps about 12%, dynamic motion about 8.5%, but static spatial relations barely move, under 1%. The improvement is concentrated exactly where understanding change over time lives. That's not noise. That's the paradigm doing what it claims.
And the images? Because predicting a future frame is where I'd expect a specialist generator to crush a generalist.
You'd think so. On their real-world prediction benchmark, Orca scores about 60, edging out a strong image model, Flux.2, at about 56, and roughly lapping a couple of others down in the low 40s, including one at 12 billion parameters. But the vivid part is the failure modes. When you ask a generic image model to predict the next moment, it teleports random objects into the scene. It hallucinates extra human hands. It just ignores the instruction. Orca keeps the robot arm shape consistent and preserves what's actually touching what. It's tracking state, so contact and morphology survive.
Okay, so text is up, image is up, both off a frozen core. Which brings us to the one I still don't believe, the robot.
This is the peak, so let me set it properly. Remember, in all that pre-training, Orca saw 0 robot action labels. None. It watched video and predicted states. Then they take the frozen core, attach an action decoder trained from scratch, and put it on a real dual-arm robot. 5 tasks, take a book, stack bowls, pull a tissue, and so on, with only 200 demonstrations each. And they test it in deliberately unfair conditions, backgrounds it never saw and objects swapped out. Trained on stacking bowls, tested on stacking boxes.
And against a baseline that used the exact same setup but started from a plain vision language core instead of Orca's world latent.
The plain core baseline produced 0 successful trajectories. Not few, 0%. Orca's world latent, same decoder, same data, got it off the ground. A breakthrough from nothing.
So, the only difference is what the frozen core knew. And one core knew enough about the world to act, the other knew nothing usable.
And then the image that sticks. Watch the failure cases. The baseline robots, when a grasp goes wrong, they shake in place, repeating the same failed grab, going nowhere. Orca fails the first spoon grab too, and then it retries, adjusts, and recovers. There's a recovery score in the paper. Orca hits 100 where a strong baseline sits around 54. 2 robot arms, one flailing uselessly, one that fumbles and tries again. Like someone who learned to cook by watching hundreds of videos, clumsy the first time holding the knife, but they know what success is supposed to look like, so they don't give up.
And that's the whole promise from the top, made physical. It watched, never practiced, and still knew what getting it right looked like well enough to correct itself. That's the emergent transfer.
That's the headline the authors are proudest of. Video pre-training, no action labels, real physical gain. If that holds, the robot data scarcity wall gets a door in it.
So, let me be the person in the comments now, because the framing is running a little ahead of the evidence. 2 things. First, against the genuinely strong robot baseline, a model pre-trained on large-scale robot data, Orca isn't dominant. It wins on the unseen background test, roughly 37 to 28. But on the swapped object test, it essentially ties or slightly trails, about 28 to 31. Comparable to a specialist is honest. Beats specialized baselines is doing some quiet work.
That's fair, and I'll concede it. The action results against the strong pre-trained baseline are mixed, not a clean win.
And second, the bigger one. We said the world state is tethered to a frozen vision encoder. Remember that pocket note. That's not a footnote, it's the crux. Both transition losses are supervised against the embeddings of a pre-trained vision system. The authors say it plainly. This aligns the learned state space with an existing semantic space. So this isn't a raw, physics-grounded model of the world. It's tethered to whatever that vision encoder already represents. It's like describing everything in the vocabulary of a language you already speak. You can say a lot, but only the distinctions that language already has words for. They haven't shown world modeling that stands free of an existing semantic embedding. Not yet.
I can't argue that one either. The reframe is model the world state, not your outputs. But the state they built inherits a vision model's worldview, rather than growing its own from raw signal. And the conscious-unconscious language, as lovely as it is mechanically just 2 lost terms. The metaphor is carrying more weight than the mechanism sometimes.
Which is why I'd take the authors at their own word here. They call this an initial step. The models are small, and at 4 billion they already see a tug of war. Pushing the image readout can cost the action one. There's no clean, single loss yet. They've used only a tenth of the video they've collected, 12,500 hours out of 125,000, because they think the idea needs more model capacity before it fully pays off.
And that's the honest posture. Not a finished system that beats the field. An ambitious, unusually well-tested first step in a different direction. So back to that sentence I couldn't have said cold at the top. A model watched video, was never shown one action, and got better at controlling a robot. Because what it learned wasn't how to act, it was what state the world was in. The bigger idea passed any one benchmark. Maybe intelligence isn't organized around what you output. Maybe it's organized around tracking the world underneath, and language, vision, and action are just ports into it.
So here's what I'd actually watch for. If you build or follow embodied AI, the question this forces is a clean one. Do we keep pouring scarce, expensive robot demonstrations into next action policies? Or do we bet that passive video plus a shared world state is the cheaper road to a robot that recovers from its own mistakes? Pick the road you'd fund and say why.
The full annotated version is on paperdive.ai. Every term tapped to define, with links to the related papers. The V-JEPA and EMU lines this one argues with, grouped by theme.
Quick housekeeping. This script was written by Anthropic's Claude Opus 4.8. Cassidy and I are AI voices from 11 Labs, and the producer isn't affiliated with either company. The paper is Orca, from the Beijing Academy of Artificial Intelligence, posted late June 2026, and we recorded this on July 12.
Next time a model impresses you, ask the sealed textbook question. Freeze the core and see what's still in there.